I feel like Kobe 24, you know I had to ice my wrist. I've been ballin' since a young, you know I had to stack my chips. Bending corners, 12 personas, know we had to take them risks. You want a spot, then take a shot, don't give a fuck about no miss. We in the field, but I'm in the end zone, no I can't lie. Good as a friend, but she in the friend zone. Look at the score. I'm sorry, little brother, you know you can't win. Like a knockout. I punch like take when I aim at his chin. So we in the back.
Alrighty, welcome to the 4 o'clock session, the final one of Wednesday, with Native PHP, past, present, and future, with Shane Rosenthal. Said that right? Perfect. Welcome. Come on up. And thank you very much for sponsoring PHP Tech. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Check. We're going to do something real quick before we even start. I want everyone to stand up. Everybody stand up. Come on. I'll be the voice. I'll be the voice in the back of your head that you hear all day. I need to go walk. I need to stretch more. Let's just everybody stretch. Just for 10 seconds. Come on. You have permission. It's the end of the day. We got one last thing to do. Let's just get some blood flowing. All right. Now it's not awkward, right? All right, cool. Real quick question. How many people here, show of hands, are active mobile app developers? You push code on a regular basis for your clients or your own company? Cool, a few people. All right. Hands down, everybody that did not put your hand up, who would like to be a mobile app developer, especially if you didn't have to learn a new language? Right? With Native PHP, that is exactly what I'm here to tell you you can do right now. And I'm not talking about a progressive web app. This is not a React Native or Flutter or Capacitor wrapper. This isn't even a server running on the device, which would drain the battery and overload the CPU and definitely not get allowed by the app stores. I'm talking about a real native mobile application with real native functionality. That's annoying, sorry. Ready to be approved by the app stores within days, sometimes even less than that. Android and iOS, all built with the same language we're all here for, PHP. Hi, my name is Shane Rosenthal. It's a great day to have a great day. I'm really excited to be here on behalf of Native PHP and the whole team behind me, which is few but big enough. It's more than just me doing all the work to get to where we are right now. We're going to talk about Native PHP's past. There's a little bit of cloud of some of the people that started it and some confusion maybe, and I want to clarify some of that stuff and how I came along and started working with it. Some of the things that we've already got going on, and then obviously some of the future really cool, fun things that we dream about and are kind of working on right now. We're going to do a demo. We'll do some live coding if the internet gods prevail, and we'll do some boring adult talk stuff at the end, which actually, as I've gotten older, I've come to love the talking part of things a little bit more. So maybe you'll enjoy that too. Before we begin, I just want to say my goal for you today is to feel comfortable with the amount of work and to understand conceptually how we've put things together so that you feel comfortable to actually start building real native mobile applications with PHP. Before we start though, I just want to thank Eric and John. I don't think Eric's in here, but John, there he is. Thank you very much, the whole PHP tech team. This is amazing. We were just called, I think, 10 days ago or something like that. And I was kind of talking to my partner about coming up here, and I was like, I'm way too busy. And my girlfriend and I, we just landed a few hours ago. So thank you. You guys do an amazing job here. Thank you. So let's start. Let's do a demo. This is my phone. Is that working? It's a little bit of a lag, maybe. It's a little slow. It's actually much faster, on my device, but so there's a little bit of a lag there. Just understand that. I'm going to draw your attention to this beautiful Native PHP icon, right, kind of in the middle of the screen. This is the Native PHP kitchen sink, and before I touch the icon here, I want you to know that everything that I show you is going to be on Android, but everything I show you is also available on iOS. Simon Hamp and I, my partner, we are coding in parity. So any kind of like new features we're adding, we are intentionally checking out new branches in Git, and I'll work on mine or he'll work on his, and then vice versa, we work on it together, release them together. We really believe in staying in step, so you're not like, I want to code things, but it's only available on iOS and I'm doing Android, or vice versa. The other thing is Native PHP Kitchen Sink app. The purpose of this app is to demonstrate what we can do with the device right now with PHP, with Native PHP. So that's the entire function. It's not like a lot of other stuff that you can do. It's really just focusing on the core stuff that we've already got going on. The other thing is this is all built with a Laravel application. The coding part, I'm going to show you the code behind this, some of the problems that we had to face, the challenges, and how we overcame them. And I think you find that we really are putting the developers first in all of the decisions that we have to make with this, because we are developers. We know what it's like getting calls at 2 o'clock in the morning from clients that are pissed off, and we don't want that for you, and we definitely don't want that for your customers doing that to you, and vice versa. So yeah, let's go ahead and go into the Native PHP Kitchen Sink app, and you'll see the very first thing that you'll see is a login screen. There you go. And one of the first questions that Simon and I always get is like, how do I connect to my MySQL database, right? And this is not an us like decision. This is like the mobile worlds has already decided, like, and there's probably other ways to go about this, but essentially you don't want to ship your app to your users with production MySQL credentials in your app, right? So this is using an API. I'm gonna go ahead and log in here. And I'm just sending my credentials up to a Laravel Cloud API with Sanctum on it. It's authenticating me, and it's passing back a token, a Sanctum token. If you're not familiar with Sanctum, it's just a way to it's with Laravel, it's a way to do authorizations for API endpoints, and you get a token, and you can control how long that token lives. And the very first thing that I do with that is actually I receive that token back, and I'm storing it on the device. So that's actually the first function that you'll notice here that I'm actually doing with the device. It's not going into a file. It's not going into a SQLite database, which this ships with. It's not going into cache or session. It's going into the same kind of secure storage that the mobile bank app that you have on your phone in your pocket right now. It's the same thing. They use the same kind of thing. It's the same level of encryption. So it's storing that there. I'm going to go ahead and close this and show you that's the first one that we kind of saw, but there's actually another one. So are there Laravel devs here? Got a few? All right. Woohoo Laravel. Cool. So you can't see this on the screen, but you can see it on my phone. It's actually asking me to verify my identity for security. It doesn't show that through ADB, I guess. And it's asking for biometric authentication required. I'm going to go ahead and hit the wrong finger. It doesn't work. I'll use the magic finger, and yeah, we're authenticated. It says could not authenticate because there's a delay with toast messages, and there's another function, all right? So we actually are using just a Laravel, and I'll show you the code behind this, a Laravel middleware that's checking for that secure, we have secure get, secure set, and so we're just checking for that secure get token if that's coming back. If there's one there, then hey, let's have them log in with biometrics, which is a typical standard mobile API kind of flow that you would naturally want to do anyway. So yeah, the next thing, let's take a photo. I'm going to try to squeeze as many people in here as I can. And we'll put this on some of the socials later. That's okay over there, I don't care about that. I'm going to post this, so if you don't want your face in it, just hide your face. If you do, or you don't care, just make your face bigger. I don't care, whatever. All right, there we go. Cool. All right, and now it's coming back, and there's our awesome, cool picture. You guys will see that later on X. Next, what else do we have? Hard to see this maybe, but I'm going to zoom in just for a second. You can see this is the little sidebar navigation. We have system, we have dialogue, and we have this thing called Laravel. And just to touch on this real quick, what we did was we built facades around, if you're familiar with Laravel, you're familiar with facades. We've abstracted out a lot of the PHP methods that you're actually going to be calling to these facades. And so we have a system and a dialogue, and that's intentional because those are the names of the facades that you'll end up interfacing with later. So zoom back out. Let's go into go back all the way out. We'll go into system. We have flashlight. Let's check out flashlight. All right. This is actually a very sentimental function for me. I was up until like 3 o'clock in the morning, 17 days a week, getting up again at like 7 in the morning, working on this and like trying to figure out compiling PHP and all these different craziness of things, because I was obsessed with the project. My girlfriend, thank God she remembers my name and I remember hers. But you guys ever see the movie Castaway, Tom Hanks? Wilson! At the very end of the movie, he's got the lighter, and he's like just flicking this lighter like, oh my God, in 1 second I can do what took me months to build a fire on the island with. And that was me. I'm like, at least I got this working, you know, keeping myself warm. Yeah. So we've got push notifications. I'm going to skip for now. Absolutely works. It's just a little bit longer of a discussion. Vibrate, you're not going to be able to feel it from here. Biometric scanner, we've already demonstrated, but there's that. We've got dialogue. Inside of dialogue, we have alert, share, toast. I'm just going to do a little hello PHP tech, and that's just a toast that comes up. This is all using Livewire under the hood, so if you're familiar with Livewire at all, it's what I prefer to code with. It's just easy to get things done with it. And I'm just using Livewire and hitting some native methods. The last one I will show is this Laravel reverb. So like I said, everything works on iOS. That's my daily driver is iOS, and I've got the same thing pulled up on my iPhone. I'll just say hello there and hit send. And it does a little vibrate also. Someone else is on there. Oh no, that was me. I did it twice. And I'll just return back, hey. So if you're not familiar with reverb, reverb is like Laravel's first party WebSockets. So you can do real-time notifications and real-time interactions with the app. You can let your imagination kind of go wild, because technically, because we have reverb, you can really control other people's devices to an extent, and so it's kind of cool. All right, that's the demo. That's the demo. Let's look at some code. All right, I took some notes looking at other people's talks today. I'm not a light mode guy. I'm very much a dark mode guy, so this is going to be a little bit strange for me, but is this okay? You guys can read some of this stuff pretty good? Yeah, even in the back, you got it? Okay. I've got a couple packages opened up here right now, or a couple projects. I'm going to go into this one called tag. This is a fresh Laravel application. I've only done a couple things. Number one, I added this repositories node into my composer.json. I ran composer require native PHP / mobile, which is this. That pulled in the latest version. And then in my env, I added this native PHP app _ ID and the native PHP app _ version, and I changed this app name to tech. This is a Livewire, it's a Laravel 12 starter kit with Livewire. Livewire comes with Flux, so I'm going to be using a little bit of Flux. It's just really helpful for prototyping like UI components and stuff. So let's go ahead and make a new component. So we'll say PHP artisan make. You probably can't read that, and that's okay. That's all right for now. I do Livewire make toast. I like toast. We'll make toast. We'll go into our welcome.blade.php. I've already got the Vite app CSS in there, and we'll just clear out the body and put in this Livewire toast component. And normally what I would do, I would put something in here and like in the mount or something and DD it or something just to see that I've got some connectivity. I'm working with where I think I'm at. And you can absolutely do that. And I really do recommend when you're building mobile apps, you can just load this in the browser. The native functions aren't going to work, obviously, in the browser because it's a different PHP binary that we've compiled for iOS and Android. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But you can prototype setting up the UI and stuff the way you want to in the browser. When you're ready, you just push it to the phone, which I'll show you in a second. Let's go into Toast. This is the blade. And let's do a Flux input. We'll do wire model equals message. And we'll do like classicals my10. and that's fine. And we'll do a flux button underneath it. And when we click that, we're going to run a method called toast, which doesn't exist yet, but we'll get there. And we'll say click me. Why not? Any fans of emojis? I love emojis. I think ChatGPT does too, because it's put them everywhere. I use them all the time. All right, so when that comes in, we're going to call this method that doesn't exist yet. We need this public string called message, set that to an empty string, and then public function toast. And this is where the rubber meets the road. How do we actually get this to toast? Well, I already kind of mentioned we use facades under the hood, and the toast facade is under the dialog facade. So we'll use the dialog, and we'll import that facade, and we'll do toast, and we'll set this one just takes one parameter, one argument, and that's the message, whatever you want to say in there. And so since we're using LiveWire, it's just wired up this way, and we can go ahead and check this out. So I've already run one command for Native PHP, and that was PHP artisan native :install. I didn't know how the internet would be, and I didn't want to take my chances on that. That downloads a lot of some of the binaries. For Android, it's about 16 megabytes. On the iOS side, it's 50-ish megabytes. So I already did that, so that everything's here. Then once you're done with that, you can just run PHP artisan native run. And that's going to ask me a series of questions that you probably can't read, but which platform would you like to run? Android. What is your build type? So we have debug, release, and app bundle, and AAB. We're not going to get into that right now. We're just going to do debug. And then, well, it did something I didn't want it to, but that's okay. I've already got, oh, that's what it did. Give me 1 second. Try it again. All right, that's what I wanted. I had my phone plugged in. So the way that this works is it detects if you have a phone plugged in and ABB is on, which is the way that your computer kind of talks to Android. If there's one plugged in, it's just going to start booting, and that's what it was starting to do. I unplugged the phone, and I don't have any emulators running, which you can download as many emulators as your computer can handle from Android Studio, and I've already done that, and I've got a bunch here. So if I had an emulator on and my phone plugged in, it's going to say which of these two do you want to run this on. But since I've got nothing on right now, I'll just say 15 ice cream, and then it says booting, ... You can't see it because I am in full screen, but there it is. So it actually just started up this device. We'll give that just a second. We're going to unlock it. Please don't hack me with my passcode. And yep, let that fully boot. And then back here, it is going through and it's doing a bunch of stuff. And I want to explain what that bunch of stuff is, but here it is loaded up. So there's the app running. That's the app that we just put together. When you run, at least for Android, iOS is a little bit different for now. We'll talk about that towards the end of the talk. When you run, what that does, it takes the entire Laravel application. It takes away like a bunch of stuff you just don't need. Node modules, anything .get, some files and folders that we have in our own vendor package that aren't required for Laravel to actually run. We're trying to slim that down as much as we can. We zip up the entire package, we place it in a read-write area inside of the Android app, and then we boot. And on boot, there's a lot of things that happen, but one of those things that happens, if we go back and look at the env, I have this app version set to debug. This was like a tool of necessity, I guess. I didn't set out with this in mind, but essentially what it's doing is it detects, it's doing some version matching. So when I first unzip that package, or before I even unzip that package, I look at whatever version is already installed. And what does that say? Is that whatever string it is, if the version that's coming in is the exact same thing, we don't have to do that whole unzip process. And we do a couple other things, artisan migrate and clearing some cache and stuff like that. Your users, it takes a little bit longer to do that, and your users won't want to do that. So we do recommend, obviously, semantic versioning for your apps as you're deploying and you're pushing them. But while you are prototyping or building, you don't want to keep having to go back to env and bumping, and I could have made a little tool that did it automatically, but I just said, if this is set to debug, forget the whatever logic there is for version matching, just do that whole unzip process. So that's what's going on there. So let's go into this and we'll just see if this works. So we'll say, hello, PHP Tech. We'll click the button, and there we have it. That's it. Native function. Let's go a little deeper. Thanks. It's kind of a big deal, right? Take that, JavaScript. No, I'm just kidding. I can do that for years. Let's look at this other package. So this is the actual code base for the native PHP kitchen sink that I was just telling you about. And you can see like everything here, it's just a Laravel application. There's not anything here that I did other than install the package, set up maybe some config flags or some stuff inside of env. This is the web.php. Whenever I look at a project first, this is where I start. It's kind of like the Bible for the app. You can tell how good or not good a developer is by looking at the web.php sometimes. And this is just like, yeah, we have this middleware. It does say has session token because that's initially what it was called, but then I implemented this secure get instead. So that's doing the secure get and the secure set. And if that's null or if it's not there, then we just redirect to the home route. And if it is, then we can pass that along. You can get as creative as you want to with security and stuff to do whatever you want, but that's how this is implemented right now. Then we have this group called system, and I want to draw your attention to camera. This is one of those things I told you at the beginning that was like a really interesting challenge that we had to figure out a good way to overcome. Essentially, and we'll talk a little bit about like how PHP gets inside of an Android app in the first place, but essentially a request comes in through a web view, and there's a bunch of things that we can look at that request and determine where we need to go for it to process effectively. One of those, if it doesn't land on something else, we default to running it through this PHP engine we've created. We did not want to have something like the camera, when you boot it up, for that PHP thread to just be running and sitting there, burning your phone, burning the CPU, draining the battery, etc. This is the solution we came up with, and it's actually one of my favorite implementations, or one of my favorite things to show off, because I think it's really clever. I wish I could say I took that I created this. I think Simon created it, and he told me like, this is how you should do this. And I went and I did it, and I'm like, hey, I got that working. And he's like, wait, it worked? And I'm like, yeah, it worked. He's like, oh, all right. Theoretically it should. So what we're doing is when you call system camera, all it's doing is telling Android to open the intent of a camera. Whenever that is done, natively on Android, that's going to send a signal back to the app and say, hey, we took a picture and here's the path, or you can get a lot of different things through Kotlin or whatever about that photo, and it just sends it back. You have a hook that you can do something, and that something we chose, because we are rendering everything out inside of a web view, is we have full access to the web view. So we're injecting JavaScript in real time, and we're firing a native JavaScript event. So we can do things like, if you're familiar with Livewire, we have this attribute, on attribute. And we've created some events for you, so you can just listen for native : photo taken, and it's just going to happen magically for you. So you can just like hook into that, and that works on inertia, that works in just vanilla JavaScript, or whatever you want to do for the front end. You just have to know the namespacing and what that thing's called. All of that's in the docs. Additionally, we're also calling kind of the same way through JavaScript eventing, but we're calling into a Laravel native event. So you can write just regular Laravel event listeners and listen for that event and handle that however you want to. And that to me, I think it was smart. So that's how we did that. So we're not burning the CPU, we're not burning through, like draining the resources, just waiting for something. We're just being very asynchronous. That's what we call it. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's asynchronous. And then I do some like unnecessary stuff here, but we're getting the path, and then we base64 encode it, and then we set it to this photo data URL. And inside of just as you would with Livewire, if there's a photo data URL, then that's the source of an image, and then we just have this class with some Tailwind stuff to make it look pretty. So camera, biometric authentication, and right now we're using Firebase Cloud messaging for like push notifications. Each device is responsible for getting its own token. There's a lot of different things that go into that, but essentially you say, hey, get a token, and the user will be like, oh, they want to allow notifications, and you say yes or no, and then when they say yes, it goes off to Firebase and it fetches through HTTP a token, and that comes back. So that's the asynchronicity of that. Those are the only three right now. There's going to be a lot more as we start building out more of these APIs. And that is the demo time. Yes, thank you. I'll be here all week. All right. Native PHP, past, present, and future. My initial talk title is going to be Native PHP, what the hell did we do? Because to me, initially, it was like, it's very still kind of magical, and I would be in your seat kind of skeptical, like, what happened here? I'm going to show some of that. I'm going to show a lot of that. I want to talk about the story, though, and the history of PHP. There we go. I don't want all this stuff on the screen. Okay. Native PHP was actually created by a beautiful man named Simon Hamp. Simon lives on the Canary Islands off the coast of Africa, which is like, it's African, but it's Spanish, a Spanish island, but he's from England. It's a weird story. Nonetheless, very smart guy. He came up with this notion of like compiling PHP into a binary that you could ship with an app for macOS, and figured it out. It took him a while, but he figured that out. And this is a few years ago, 2023. Another man named Marcel Posiot, which you might know from Laravel Herd or Expose, or he owns Beyond Code, the company, Tinkerwell, if you're familiar with any of those tools. He saw this and was like, this is pretty cool, and they synced up. They hooked up about this, and they kind of geeked out about it. Marcel was actually already scheduled to talk about something at Laracon 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee. He changed kind of at the last minute to Native PHP. They had already coined this term, and that's what he did the talk on, with Simon's blessing, of course. I think Simon was in the front row for this. And this is where my journey with Native PHP begins. I was standing there on the side. I was actually talking to Aaron Francis and had some questions, and I'm like, do I have to tweet you the questions for the speaker, or can I just ask you? And he's like, what is the question? And yeah, this was, to me, it was very, it was earth-shaking in my mind. To break away from the browser server construct with PHP. So like, wait, I don't have to learn new tooling. I can use the same thing, and now I'm on a device. It's a very weird kind of idea. It's very like, what else could you do? You know, like that's pretty cool. At the time, I was actually, and I'm a very open person. I talk a lot. I'm very sharey and TMI kind of person. I don't really, whatever. I believe in communication and vulnerability and all that stuff. At the time, I was actually waiting for back surgery. And so November 1st, 2023, I got a L4, L5 transforaminal lumbar interbody fusion. I got a couple years of getting really fast at saying that, so I sound smart. Thank you. This is my back. I've got titanium screws and all sorts of stuff in there. I don't feel it. It was a very successful surgery, which is very rare for what I had done. But at Laracon, I was also a little dehydrated and had a migraine. I just wanted to go back to the hotel. But this talk title kept me there for the same reasons I just told you. Just the whole concept of this. Now, I was a little bit deflated because to me, I don't know about you, when I hear native something in software, I think of mobile, right? I think like native script or React Native. That wasn't the case. This was about desktop. As deflated as I was, I still went home excited and immediately started a YouTube channel. Laravel Online is my YouTube channel. I like to educate. I like to take like junior devs through the thought process of why we make decisions and how we make certain decisions as pro developers. And this was kind of like my outlet for a while doing that. I said I had surgery. This is just a couple months later. And like I said, I like to share or overshare, so a little personal about me, but I got divorced right away. I got a separation and sold my house, and I ended up on the couch for about 6 months. And I wouldn't put that on a resume, necessarily, but it does kind of set the stage for where I had to be for any of the next following events kind of to come about. I was on my couch and just kind of contemplating, like, what is the meaning of life? That is actually the answer, just so you know. It was an interesting time. At the end of the 6 months, though, I came to two conclusions. Number one, I'm going to follow whatever excites me. If it's exciting and I really feel excited about some opportunity or something, that's what I'm going to go after. And I think for a while, actually, I kind of faked some excitement about some things, just being honest. But when I feel that excitement, that's what I'm going to do. And the other one is I actually love Laravel. I love PHP. I love the community. I love the work that I do. I love problem solving. I love getting paid by using my brain. And those are the two big drawbacks that I got from this moment in time. I have a good friend, Jason Beggs, that after a couple months or something, he reached out to me and he was like, hey, why don't you go to Laracon this year, get your ticket? And I was like, no, I just really didn't want to do anything with anybody. I was just like, I'm burnt out. I think I was burnt out for like 10 years or something. I watched a lot of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and Peaky Blinders. And so he kind of, in a way, got me off the couch, even though it was a few months later. I bought my ticket, I went to Laracon, and I was so glad that I did. I met up with Simon, who we had talked a little bit on online. At that point, I'd already done a couple pull requests to Native PHP, because there were some things that I wanted to do, and we were familiar with each other, but we were excited to meet each other for whatever reason. And that excitement is exactly what I'm talking about. I go to Laracon, and Marcel Postio had tweeted a couple days before that he was not going to make it. He was sick. Don't think I can make it. And I was very surprised when I walked into my hotel lobby that he was standing there. I'm like, Marcel. And we had talked a couple times about some stuff. And we ended up hanging out a lot. We Ubered around a couple places. We had breakfast, we had lunch. We even Simon was staying with some guys at an Airbnb. The day before, he had to fly home at 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And ended up in the pool with all his clothes, a little tipsy. It was kind of funny. No, with all of his clothes. This is not a React conference, Laracon. But the conversation inevitably came up between me and Marcel. Like, what's going on with mobile? Because I wanted this. I think you guys are onto something here. What's going on with that? And he, for all the reasons that I told you at the beginning, just it's not possible. The binaries are going to be 800 megabytes. No one can download that. It's not going to fit really on the phone adequately, at least. It's going to burn the CPU. It's going to drain the battery. It's not going to get allowed by the app stores. It's just, he's like, the way I see it, it's just not going to happen. Simon, I asked him, and he's like, I don't know, bro. Maybe. I think it's possible. Brits. And yeah, that was where my mind was. Like, maybe it can be done. I don't know if it can be done. But the Simon guy is cool. I want to work with him. Let's find something to do. And so we went home after Laracon. I was very excited for whatever reason. I had that excitement with Simon, and we wanted to work on something. We both felt this way. We both felt excited. And we didn't know what it was. He also runs a company called Laradevs, and he needs some help with that. But I didn't feel the excitement there. And I just no, I'm not going to do that. There's some ideas and we could talk about it, but it's just not the thing that I feel driven towards right now. And I met a man named Stephen Fox a couple weeks before Laracon at a conference. Daniel was there, or not a conference, but a PHP Upstate meetup in South Carolina where I'm from. And he kind of bullied us into starting a podcast, basically. Me and Simon were already thinking about it, and Simon's like, oh, I'm going to do it too. And it's like, we can't say no and just go do our own and say that we don't have time, but we do, But so that we did. So we started the podcast called The Bucket. So it's Shane, Simon, Steven, S3, The Bucket. That was all my idea. Whatever they say is not true. And this is a really fun thing for us. We get together as often as we can. We try to do it once a week. We've been very busy lately, but we did just do an episode. This is the way to sum it up is me and Simon trying to make that's what she said jokes, and Steven trying to reel us in on our mom or something the whole time. we talk a lot about code and conspiracy theories and like all sorts of stuff. It's just a good, fun place. What's interesting is Native PHP, we sold about 1,000 licenses so far. We've got like 60 subscribers, so check us out. You'll have fun. If you do podcasting, like I don't even listen to podcasts, but I'll be on one. I'll start one or whatever. But if you listen to podcasts, listen to us. I think you'll enjoy it. It's pretty funny. Little plug there. Here's Simon, Steven, and I at Laracon, becoming best bros, didn't even know it. As the months grew on, Simon at one point in between recording announced to us internally that he submitted a talk for Laracon EU and it was accepted. And I was like, no way, dude, this is awesome. This is cool. Like, that's awesome. And I'm like, what are you going to be talking about though? Like, what's the talk? Wait a minute. We were talking about this mobile thing. You have accepted at a Laracon thing. What are we talking about here? And that's when he announced to us, building mobile apps with PHP. Oh my God, my excitement went through my brain. It still stains on the walls in the kitchen and stuff. I was very excited about this. I was like, as a friend, I'm like, I want to help you. What, like slides? I didn't do these slides. The talk itself, like let's look at the app, and over the next couple months or so, I started to like understand conceptually how he put this whole thing together on the iOS side. And yeah, that was like for a couple months there, I was really focused and intent on helping my friend. And I asked him a question maybe a week before his talk that would forever change the trajectory of my life. Even if everything died today, it's still like I'm on stage at PHP Tech. Asked me what my New Year's resolutions were in December. It not had anything to do with this, right? And I asked him, all right, if you're charging money for this and you are expecting people to pay, companies aren't going to pay if you're just doing iOS. So when is the Android side coming about? And his response, I don't know, bro. I've got all this client work to do, and you know, like iOS just got started, maybe 6 months, a year. I don't know. And thank you. I practice that a lot, by the way, you guys. I'm probably going to move over to Africa so that comes in useful. That burned a hole in my brain for like 2 days. I remember back in like 2018 on a production server, compiling PHP, bringing in the MS SQL ODBC drivers for their stupid app. It was actually a cool app, but it was annoying. And like figuring some of these things out. And also I was very driven for the first time, because I've tried a lot of like, try to swing and hit things out of the park as far as like SaaS apps go. This is the only time and the first time that I ever like approached it from the mentality of like, I can see that he's got something here and he's too busy to really do anything. And I'm also like high risk, ask for forgiveness, not for permission kind of thing. And I just started doing it. I just started figuring it out, just like asking the questions and just Googling around. And after a couple weeks, I was asking him questions of like, hey, did you bring in this extension? And what do your files look like at the end of the day? And how long did it take you to figure this stuff out? And we got on a call, and he was like, so are you like trying to do this, bro? Or like, what are you doing? I'm like, I think I'm doing the Android thing. I don't have anything to show for it at this point. I was very like, don't look at me. I'm just, got my thumb in the mud or something. And he was like, no, I think this is good what you're doing. And I think that's we ended up starting a company right there on the spot. It's called Bifrost Technologies. Bifrost is the Norse mythological bridge between Asgard, where the gods live, you guys see some heads nodding, right? And Midgard, where us mortals live. And I didn't even think about that. I was thinking about bridges, and Skyview was something that I was playing around with, but I just saw bridges, like bridges between PHP and the mobile. Bridges between like us as web developers and mobile dev. And then like all the things, the code things, there's a lot of like bridging. I even have some things named bridge because they are bridging between a lot of different things. And so he was like, how about Bifrost? And that's what we went with. And he told me, and he'll tell you himself, he's like, so many people over the years have come to me and said, how can I help? What can I do? Tell me what to do. He's like, you are the first person I met that just started doing something. And that's kind of the energy that started the company that we've got. Those are the kinds of people we want with us as well. People that are excited. They have the excitement. They see the vision. They have the drive. They want to push forward. They can see where the real potential of this thing is. those are the people we're looking for. We have other people that we've talked about doing some partnerships and stuff, and it's not the same. And we're like, I think that's our answer. Like, we have to be smart about this and really strategic about it. Nonetheless, that's where I come in, me sitting up in the dark until 3 o'clock in the morning, up again at 7, ignoring my girlfriend, having weird arguments about who remembers. I don't know. And that's it. So, who wants to see some code? Yeah? Before we do that, I want to explain just one more thing. To understand this next part, you have to ask yourself about PHP. What is PHP? PHP, people think it's a language. I don't think it's actually a language. PHP, I keep saying PHP. PHP is C. PHP was all written in C. C is a very low level language. That's how we can get like CPU and memory and like all these very low level internet connectivity and stuff like that. It's because it's actually written all in C. The Zen compiler is all written in C. The built-in functions, the string length, array merge, all the functions that you use are actually C functions, right? We just have this wrapper we call PHP to interface with it. This is not my kitchen or a living room. It's not a kitchen at all. It's not my living room. All of the extensions are all written in C. Those are my legs, by the way. Curl, MBString, PDO, etc. It's all written in C. Guess what else is written in C? iOS and Android, right? So fundamentally, we're talking kind of the same language here. iOS has something called the toolchain, I believe. Android has something called the NDK, the Native Development Kit, which is kind of like this library that you can compile natively against so that you can end up with, not this easy in a 5-minute conversation, but you can end up with a PHP version that is built for that runtime, for that environment. And that's exactly what we've done. And so, now who's ready to see some code? All right. I'm going to show you just a little bit. This is kind of proprietary. I'm feeling big. This is my build scripts project. This is what I started working on this, I think the last week of January this year. I still work on it every day, all day long, as much as I can. I would say still 80% of what I've done in the hard work and really like the hardest problems that I had to solve were all inside of this project. This project is, I run 2 functions and I end up with PHP, finally. It's crazy to sit up here and say this. I end up with a PHP binaries compiled and ready for the Android runtime. And the way that it's done, in a nutshell, I'm going to be a little brief on it, but I have this build dependencies, this dependency versions. This is just being sourced in my other shell scripts. This is just kind of like a lookup. This is like key value pairs of like some things that I need later, but it's important. It also has like, which versions of things that we're doing, and then also like where do you get those dependencies from? How do you download them? And does that change per version and all that kind of stuff? So that was AI helped a lot with that. Build dependencies. So eventually we're going to compile PHP. We'll run make against it, and if you've ever done anything like that, you kind of understand. It's like you run a script and it does something, right? It does make. We have all of these dependencies, though, that Laravel requires that have to be pre-compiled before you can even run this. So we have to compile all of the dependencies that are required first. And that's what build dependencies does. So my main function, it's so weird looking at this in light mode. It downloads and extracts PHP first, puts it into a folder. It's called my deps, my PHP build deps folder. So it goes through and it downloads and extracts all of my dependencies. It's the very first thing it does. It could get smart about that, like if it's already built. And I do some of that checking and whatever. And then later, I say, all right, for each library in this build order, which I'll show you in a second, because order does matter when you're compiling these things. I'm calling this build underscore and then whatever that library is. So the build order is up here, right there. And then let's just look at one of these. Download and extract. Build zlib. Is that a good one? No, let's do, yeah, this is better. OpenSSL. So we run make this clean. We have some local variables redeclared, and then we run this configure, and we specify We specify Android, we specify the toolchain, we specify this NDK while we're compiling all of these. Once that's done, we do build PHP, which essentially does the same thing, except it's just doing the PHP part. This is my main function. I'll zoom in so you can see. I'm doing this clean build, which took me probably a week and a half to realize, like, when you're compiling PHP, it's going to put artifacts inside of the folder that it's compiling, and you might run into that, and it's going to leave these ghosts or phantoms of like errors that actually don't exist. But so I just like zero that out first and then move on from there. I do have to modify a little bit of the PHP source because the NDK doesn't provide like functions that are required for a lot of things, so I had to modify that a little bit. Either way. Then I run build PHP. So build PHP is where things get cool. I run this build native PHP, which is our extension. We actually have different extensions, but we have the same method names and signatures for those methods. That way you can call just a single facade when you're interfacing with it inside of a Laravel application. We do some verifying of the dependencies. We run disk clean, make disk clean, and set up the tool chain, which is a whole bunch of like CPP flags and LD flags and all sorts of craziness going on in there. And then we do this. We set the host, which is setting we're running this against the NDK. We go through, we enable a bunch of extensions, including our native PHP extension. And then we say with iconv, with OpenSSL, with zlib, and then specifying that dependencies path of all the pre-compiled things that we need for Android. At the end of it all, we end up with a bunch of like, there's some PHP files, but a bunch of .so files. Those are the libraries. Inside of Android, there's a cmakelist.txt file that tells Android like, hey, we have all these libraries that you need to know about. And I think a good way to explain what is theoretically happening with all that without showing a lot of boring code is looking at the native PHP extension here. So I know it's hard to read that on the side, I apologize. So these are my stubs. So like native PHP underscore camera, native PHP underscore biometric auth, and we're just matching whatever he's doing on iOS, or if I'm building it, I just tell him what they are, and we go on from there. Here's toast, and that takes a string of message or whatever. Underneath, we have this code, right? This is C code. Like I said, everything is C. What I'm doing here, let's see if we can find the toast method. Yeah. So when we do toast, we're looking for this thing called this libphp underscore wrapper. I apologize for the echo, I can kind of hear it. This is actually compiled or created in runtime when the app first boots inside of the Android environment. And we are calling a dependency to this thing. And so whenever PHP starts operating inside of the Android environment, we're saying, hey, you need this libphp wrapper, and it's created on the other side. If that's there, we can actually just delegate a call to another function that lives in C on the Android side. So I'm just saying, hey, here's whatever arguments you need, and call this function. I will show you, let me see if I can pull this up easily. We can close this down. Switch this to project view app. So this is the tech, the blank Laravel, the fresh Laravel application we just did. These are the files behind it, and you can see main. These are the SO files, so those are all the library files that you need. And then there's a bunch of like stuff in CPP, include like all the PHP stuff. And then I've got this native folder. So I've got these headers, and I'm just saying, hey, you have these functions, and this is the arguments that they take. And then in C, I'm just implementing that. So let's find that same toast function, and here it is. Now that we're in C, and we have this function, we're calling this function from C through PHP, through this little tunnel we dug, right? Or this Bifrost that we opened up. Heimdall opened the bridge. I delegate this to a Kotlin function. So I have a native show toast. And so on the Kotlin side, now we're fully in Android land doing anything that you can think that you want to do on a phone with Kotlin. No server running, no limitations at all. We literally can do anything that you can do on a phone. We can now call from PHP. And that is the magic sauce behind all of this. I'm just about out of time, but I need like 5 minutes. Is that okay with everyone? Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right, back to the slides. All right. Oh, I was supposed to say show me and then show you, but we already did that. Okay, Native PHP, past, present, and now the future. The future for this project is exciting. I'm still very excited. I still have a hard time sleeping. I think I said it and someone's like, you should write a book. I have a hard time sleeping because I always feel like I'm living a dream right now. I'm literally on stage with lights on me talking to a bunch of strangers. It's pretty cool. The future of the project, we are really desperately kind of trying to work on the native function APIs. All of the, like, we need Bluetooth, we need location. Everybody has their own opinions of what they need for their apps, and they're all on our Discord saying, this is what I need, that's what I need. And nobody said secure storage, but we're like, you don't even know what you need, right? Like, you need this. Like, these are things that you absolutely need. We also have a project code named Zephyr. We actually landed on a better name, but I'm not allowed to release that right now. Zephyr is actually in production right now. It's our build service that we have for the desktop side of things. So if you're on a Windows machine, you want to build macOS, you just can't do it. But with Zephyr, you can do that. We can do the same thing with this. And it's kind of like if you're familiar with Forge or Cloud, it's kind of the same concept, right? It's a build service. We can do all sorts of things. We can do push notifications. We can have an ad service where if you like, hey, I don't mind having ads, and there's a company that's like, hey, I'd like to put ads, we can do ads. We just like dream about what this thing can do. There's one more that was really cool. I don't know. And then there's like OTA updates. That whole zipping, unzipping thing, we could have a server where it's got that version check on the server for your app specifically. When your users pop open their app, we just say, hey, that's a different version. Do you want to update the app or just force the update? Maybe that's a config option. We pull in the new app, we reboot the thing, it does the unzipping thing, and you're ready to go. So we can skip or bypass the app stores, which they love to let people do apparently. And then we have this, yeah, I almost didn't put this on here. We're toying around with this. It's going to sound really cool. We actually have a prototype already. We're just not sure where the priorities land, but if you're familiar with, like, I think Expo is what it's called for React Native, and NativeScript has one, something like this. But essentially, you can have, and we've done it, you can have a package installed in Laravel, you run a command, and it starts a local herd server, and then you download from the App Store our app that is listening on a certain port for that herd server, and you can in real time make your app updates and have all the native functionality. I know, it's like, why wouldn't that be cool? Like, it is cool. The concept is really, really interesting. We just got to prioritize things. Also, frameworks. Because we have this PHP binary, the libraries, and everything's all set, there's really nothing that, and I looked at all of the other like main frameworks that are out there, there's no dependencies that they require that we don't already have, except for one that we're actually working on now, ICU, INTL, which is a weird thing. We'll have that soon. Filament actually requires it if you're familiar with Filament. Zen, Symfony, Yi, WordPress. It's technically possible. Like, you could have a widget inside of PHP that like opens your flashlight or whatever stupid kids are doing these days over there. Also, devices. We're fully inside Xcode and we're fully inside Android Studio. We can actually do watches. We can do TVs. We can do cars. We can do like whatever, right? Anything's really actually possible with the way that we build things. And we're really excited about all that stuff. We are looking for partners. We are looking for people that are excited, that see the opportunity here, that want to contribute, that want to help out, whether that's just putting a logo on our website or newsletter, or if you have an app for your company that you want to migrate into Native PHP, or you want to build your next flagship app idea with us, we want to facilitate that. And we're looking for people to contribute and be part of this. You can go to partners@nativephp.com. You can scan this really sexy QR code. Thank you, thank you. I spray painted that myself. I did it in Paint, actually, on Windows. Yeah, pricing. Drum roll, please. Actually, I visioned, like, remember on, what's that movie? Christmas Vacation. Pricing starts at $100 a year. That's for single license. Prices go up depending on how much your team needs or requires. But right now, until the end of this month, we are still, for the last 4 months, we've been running early access pricing. So it actually, right now, starts at $50 a year for a license. And actually, there were a lot of Easter eggs inside of all of this. But did you see the QR code to take you to the buy page? It's actually there right now. Do you see it? You can use PHP Tech. You can save 20% off your first year. That coupon code is good until the end of the month when early access pricing ends. That plus sign is a reminder for me to say, wait, there's one more thing. Let me plug my phone back in. Has anyone ever seen one of these? It's not one of those crackers you get at church. Let's close the app. I'll just touch this to the back. Pray to the internet gods. Hey. I will be here the rest of today and all day tomorrow. If you have any questions, just find me. I'm the one with the native PHP shirt on. And maybe TJ. That's it. Sorry for going over.
Good job.
Thanks. That's up to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's no more talk, so
Okay, yeah,
we can keep here at about 7.
sure.
I mean, you don't have to say it.
That's what I figured.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So do you have to build it every time and then send it over to a device, or can you run it locally so that you don't, like, obviously the native pieces you have to have on a device, but can you run the non-native pieces locally without?
So,
If you could repeat the question.
yeah, sure. So he's asking if we have to rebuild, if we have to build it every time we want to see it on the device. Right now, yes. We do have other proof of concepts for hot reloading. It's kind of done in the same manner that I was telling you about with the connect thing. That's just the word I made up. But that's the way that it is now. Early days. I mean, we just released version 1 on May 2nd, like not even 3 weeks ago. There's so many things that I know I can refactor and will refactor to make a lot of things better than what it currently is. But everything does work as you see it now. But that part, it's definitely coming.
Well, I guess my different question is, can I just use my browser and just do like artisan serve to test it?
Yeah, so the question is, can you just use the browser and do artisan serve to test things? You cannot do the native functionalities right now. With those, with the facades that we ship though, we thought about like if you have a toast, maybe we just do like a mobile browser. But it's really hard to do, like you can't do Bluetooth, right? Like we'll have to build it all again. So the facades actually yeah, it's still up there. I can show you like those facades are just these wrappers. And all they're doing is, let's go to this toast and we go to this. They're just checking if that function exists so that it doesn't throw this big error inside your browser. But you can, and I do recommend, like it's very fast to get the shell of like what you want it to look like, the UI, and like navigation and routing and all that stuff, that can all be done very quickly in the browser. And then when you're ready to start testing native stuff, go ahead and push. Ooh, ladies first.
One of the primary reasons for building native apps is for binding to native libraries, third-party code, etc. If you're manually binding everything right now for functionality, what does the roadmap look like for having that available to bind third-party code, third-party libraries, and PHP?
I'm not going to repeat all of that, but essentially you're asking, third-party APIs that are for Android and iOS that are not like part of the actual device libraries and APIs that we want to hit. What are our plans for allowing or implementing that? So right now, like the app stores don't want you to ship your apps with a ton of like all the permissions if you're only using camera, for example, right? So when you run that run command, I actually look at a config file inside of Laravel and I say like, if there's like, actually I can show you. So we're doing like biometric, false, camera, NFC. They're all turned off by default when you first install. If you set these to true, I actually write to the XML file. And I think that's probably a similar hook or mechanism that we would have maybe an array that you can set someplace to load these third-party dependencies. I would be careful though, because it's like, we want to make sure like, we want to open it up, but what if you did something that, I guess it'd be your responsibility, but if you put something in there that would blow up your friend's phone or something, I don't want it to come back on me, you know what I mean? So, but I think that's kind of like, you could have like an array of dependencies and the URLs and stuff and pass those through, and we can just put those inside of our Gradle file that will load them and you have access to it. Mr. Eric.
All right, so if I understood you correctly, it sounded like that, like for example, Filament has some dependency on extension that you guys are still working on. Are there any other restrictions as far as packages you can include? Like, what sort of things should we be looking for?
So the question is, you know, we have this, we're working on INTL ICU, which is this dependency inside of PHP that we have to compile into PHP. Are there any other restrictions for anything else, any other packages?
Yeah.
There are some things that are turned off right now that you could want. I think like maybe something like a PDF or like zip we've got in there, unzip is in there. There might be some weird little things in there. And most of those are built into PHP and they're just like flags that we can enable. We just went with like, let's get the basic, latest version PHP, basic, like whatever Laravel docs say that you need to get this thing bootstrapped and go with that. So I've done some cool things. I've done a lot of JavaScript kind of stuff just in the front end, which doesn't answer your question at all. But I haven't done any like, yeah, I'm trying to think of an example of something. Can you think of an example of something that would fall into or would fall into that?
So, image magic? Like image magic or something?
Image magic? That could be done. That's actually something we thought about with GD. I'm sorry, with Zephyr, codename Zephyr. Is like maybe you could check boxes or like put in your own things that you want and compile that for that build or for your app specifically. So yeah, that could be done. I mean, it can be compiled regardless. I just have to check the toolchain and the NDK to see how they support that, or if they have something built in natively that might even be better for the device, because that might be possible too.
So, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've seen like comparisons of speed, like Flutter and React Native developers. I don't know what goes into those benchmarks, but like Stuart and Angel have tried those things with native PHP. How does that go?
Yeah. So the question is essentially speed optimization or whatever for like against Flutter, React Native. Have we done any optimization testing or any of that stuff? No, none of it, not at all. In a nutshell, I will tell you a couple things. Number one, when I first started doing all of this, I wasn't sure if it was going to turn into 800 megabyte downloads, right? I had no idea. I also had no idea how quick things were going to be. What we're noticing from, we have a Discord server, we have a bunch of people pushing stuff out. I haven't heard anyone complain about speed at all. It is using a web view. So like PHP loves HTML, CSS, JavaScript. That's what it exports anyway. And the web view is built into both OSs to allow the rendering of those natively. So I think the only speed hindrances that you might have is between a web view and whatever backend logic. But since we're just like using this PHP engine, there's really, I mean, it's as fast as like whatever your hardware would allow for anyway. There's not any like weird loops that we're going through or anything like that. And you could see on the native PHP kitchen sink, and I can show you later too if you want, like just how quick things are actually operating on the device. This device, by the way, was $100 on Amazon. I just got a cheap, whatever it was. Actually, I got one at $100, and then it didn't have the NFC thing, so I got this one was $140. So, you know, the extra spend. But yeah, I don't mind demonstrating that more. And I guess it does depend too, like how you develop, right? Like if you're just like calling back, or if you're calling to an API server, that depends on the internet, right? If you are doing, if you're just doing like If you're just doing a request to PHP, I think it's going to be very, very fast because that's like right next to the finger that's touching it, right? Anything beyond that could slow down, but you would see that in any other apps too. I also noticed like Flux has like loading GIFs by default on the buttons. That I had a version of something, or I just like started doing stuff in Tailwind initially without that, and people like I saw, it was me and Simon, were like, it seems slow, it seems like whatever, and I added the loading GIF, and that changed everything. Like I think psychologically that's going to change it for users, and that's what's already happening inside of browsers, or inside of web apps, inside of mobile apps now anyway. So there are things that you can do to mitigate it, even though it doesn't actually increase speed. But no, I don't know how that would stack against, because they're using like native XML UI stuff.
So if I understand what you're saying about WebView correctly, so it actually is running as a microscopic browser and server, just in two processes on the same hardware, right?
So the question is like, is there? I think what you're actually getting is there like there's a server running someplace if you're using a web view. There's no server. So the web view does not need a server. It's just kind of like a window. It's like a browser. There's no server for a browser. It hits servers, right?
I don't mean necessarily a web server, but just internally, the PHP is still acting somewhat like it's just building a web page the way it always would.
So it's PHP building a web page the same way that it always would. Is that a good assumption of your question?
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. Right now we don't have ZTS, which is thread safety. So this is a single thread for PHP, the PHP builds. We can still tap into multi-threading and it's just like it's not required for PHP to work. It's something we want to do and get to that will speed things up. But Android and iOS, they do have, within a WebView context, you can still have like multiple threads running to speed that kind of thing up. So I think the WebView is running a single thread and it's passing that. Actually, I know that it is. We make sure that the requests are concurrent. There was actually a bug with inertia on iPhone, and there's some. I'm not going to go too much into it, but there was a bug with inertia that we had a pull request into inertia, and they approved it, and everything works now for inertia on the iOS side. I didn't have the same issue for other reasons. And essentially what was kind of boiling down, inside of inertia, like it's a PHP request that calls another PHP request. I initially had the issue with, I think it was with Flux actually, because Flux, Flux loads like a JavaScript file by calling like an internal route, and it delegates that call inward. And so it's a PHP script that then calls, it's a thread that calls another thread or opens or tries to open another thread, and it just kills the app. The whole app shut down, and I couldn't figure this out. And Simon's like, oh, just make them concurrent. And so I just like every function, or the one function that passes, the final function that passes things into the engine, I just wrapped it with something native to Android that says, hey, keep these concurrent. Don't start another process till this one finishes. I spent 4 days on this, 5 minutes in a conversation, 2 minutes later, it was done, it was working. I'm like, yes, hallelujah. So I know that doesn't completely answer it, but yeah, it's essentially, we can get better, we can get faster by doing some more stuff with thread safety and having more processes running, but it's really just a web view calling PHP engine.
I haven't done mobile development in 14 years, so you say a web view, I don't actually know what that means.
Sure.
In an embedded browser.
Yeah, embedded browser. That's essentially what it is, yeah. So like one of the first things I did when I wanted to see this, like how cool can you do anything, like how quickly could I, like, and I just found like the nativephp.com source code, and I just downloaded it. I think it's open source, maybe. Don't everybody rush there. I just like downloaded it, ran my command, and it just booted up the whole website in the app, like the whole thing. Everything worked, there were no problems with it. And so that to me was like, all right, so it's a browser, like it's doing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, it's doing all those things, but now we can tap into all of the native functions without leaving the comfort of our own homes, PHP. And so, yes, it's a browser, it's an embedded browser essentially. So the question is, what is the final file size for? They weren't actually 800 megabytes for me in the first place. They were around 100 megabytes. Simon and I worked on that with Android. It's surprisingly, like if you just like remove everything .git, that took out like 50 megabytes or something. So anything, like you don't just need that for Laravel to work. That was a ton of it. Our own package was several megabytes that we just don't need it inside of the Laravel app to run. And you have to think, there's like two contexts here. There's one that's where you're writing and then you deploy to the app. And then there's the app running Laravel in the app itself. It doesn't need the package. You're not going to use it to build another app inside. That would be weird. But the final size is a fresh Laravel application with Livewire. What's it called? The template starter kit is 35 megabytes AAB. And it's about, I think it's, 20 megabytes more, so 30 megabytes more, so I think it's like 60 or something on iOS.
I guess two things about like OS features. So you said that you are releasing features like in tandem, so like they're done on Android and iOS at the same time. Does that mean that you won't or don't plan to support features that are only available on one platform?
So the question is, since we're doing like in tandem iOS, Android features or like native API libraries, are we only going to do things that are on one device and not the other? No. There's times when I find that I've got way more time than Simon's got for some things. And one of the big things that I'm going to be working on, I don't know when, but I'm going to be working on it soon, is SMS. You can't do that with iOS, but you could build a whole like you can have a default SMS app. And you can design it all however you want to, have push notifications and all that stuff going. Second question.
And then secondarily, I saw the way that you kind of like reached through your tunnel that you dug into Kotlin. Is that something that you've ever exposed to us to be able to kind of like build our own modules and then build our own APIs for them and call them from within our PHP apps?
So the question is, the tunnel we dug from PHP into Kotlin essentially, or eventually, is that anything we plan to expose? We haven't thought of that, actually. I was playing with like just a single invoke function that would just take like a string of whatever you want for the first parameter and then any number of arguments, just so we don't have to keep adding stuff and recompiling whenever we want to add anything. And I'm still testing with that. I think it actually is possible to do that, and that might be a leg into doing some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You'd have to identify it, though, on the Kotlin side. And you could, I mean, you can like run PHP Artisan Native open and open inside of Android Studio or Xcode. And so you can like tinker with that code yourself if you want to make that like a really nice, to wrap it in a Laravel way without writing Kotlin code might be difficult to do that part.
Like if I was willing to write like Swift or Kotlin, right? Could you like just give me a directory in the folder structure where I can put that code that
Yeah.
you take care of sticking it into the
That technically is very possible. So he's asking if we could just like tinker with the Android or iOS code if you already know that, and yeah, you can. I think there is some verbiage on the licensing around that, but I'm going to clarify that with Simon. I don't think that should be a limitation. Okay.
Pack it up, like all they want smoke, we gon' pack 'em up. Just look at the score and the time is up. I'm the one you gon' lose, better bag it up. Yeah, add it up, send me the work, I bag it up. Zip, they mad as cause I get a bag and I rack it up. Quick, Audemars, Hublot, Patek, Trent, Louis, luggage, Paris. I feel like Kobe 24, you know I had to ice my wrist. I've been ballin' since a young, you know I had to stack my chips. Bending corners, 12 personas, know we had to take them risks. You want a spot and take a shot, don't give a fuck about no miss. I feel like Kobe 24, you know I had to ice my wrist.